This week's 1044 is brought to you by Chevron Delo 600 ADF Ultra Low Ash Diesel Engine Oil. It's time to kick some ash. The supply chain has spent most of the last 2 years imploding on itself, but according to salary data, it pays to deal with it. Hey everybody, and welcome to the 1044, a weekly webisode from the editors here at CCJ. I'm Jason Cannon, and my co-host on the other side is Matt Cole. Just about every headline you've seen since mid-2020 that has anything to do with the supply chain has been about how screwed up it is. Shortages of microchips, toilet paper, baby formula, aluminum, steel, lumber, you name it. It's been a bad time to be a link in the supply chain until payday rolls around.
The Association for Supply Chain Management's 2022 Supply Chain Salary and Career Report found supply chains were minimally impacted by the Great Resignation, an ongoing trend that's seen millions of employees voluntarily leave their jobs en masse for a variety of reasons. Salaries and compensation continue to rise, with survey respondents reporting an average of a 9% pay increase. Overall, total compensation has increased by an average of 12%, with the median package being just under $100,000.
We're joined this week by ASCM CEO Abe Eshkenazi, who said that despite the supply chain's well-publicized challenges, career satisfaction is high. And it comes down to something trucking is all too familiar with, a talent gap.
There was a talent gap prior to the pandemic. So while we experienced quite a bit of disruption from the pandemic in terms of individuals and their jobs, prior to the pandemic, for every 6 openings, the Department of Labor indicated that there was 1 qualified candidate. So we had a lot of pent-up demand for qualified candidates. Additionally, a lot of work has been done on DE&I over the past 3 to 5 years in terms of attracting and retaining not only women, but people of color. So we're seeing probably a catch-up. Obviously, the awareness and the impact of supply chain on almost every aspect of our lives has been just extraordinary in terms of the media and in terms of the attention that companies and individuals are paying. So it's not surprising that we're seeing organizations reach out and try to attract and retain qualified candidates. Additionally, as we've seen with almost every position in almost every industry right now, pay is up. But when you take a look at the pay for supply chain professionals, I think we can be really, encouraged by not only the pay for starting positions, but for continuing on in this career. This is an extraordinary career to enter into and to make a difference through their supply chain.
Those looking for a supply chain job didn't have a lot of trouble finding one. 81% of new graduates found employment in the supply chain industry in 3 months or less. For professionals already in the industry, 67% found a new job within 3 months of beginning their search.
A couple of studies that we did a number of years ago indicated that we're in a deficit position for the next 3 to 5, if not the next 5 to 10, especially with the pandemic. The gap that we had experienced prior to the pandemic only exacerbated by almost every position. Prior to that, it was a focus on career-oriented individuals. When you expand the playing field in terms of the jobs from entry level to mid-career to senior leadership, we have a deficit position in almost every one of those positions. So we're looking at a long-term issue, not a short-term systemic, or a long-term acute issue. This is a systemic issue that we've been dealing with for a number of years in terms of attracting and retaining individuals. Take a look at the number of academic programs that are now within the marketplace for individuals to, job. It's extraordinary. Prior to 2000, we maybe had a dozen programs in the world that had a supply chain academic degree program. Today, there are over 500 baccalaureate degree programs in supply chain. Historically, subject matter expertise used to be enough for these individuals. It was being a functional expert was sufficient for a lot of supply chain professionals. Today, that's the price of entry. Organizations are looking for individuals with collaboration. They're looking for coordination, communication skills. What traditionally has been referred to as soft skills, I don't think there's anything soft about those skills. These are the skills necessary for individuals combining their education, our certification, which offers a significant bump up for individuals in the marketplace, often as high as 25% increase over their counterparts. this is a wonderful opportunity to make a difference through supply chain. This field is only going to get more attractive and rewarding for individuals that want to contribute.
According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, women earn about 82 cents for every dollar paid to a man in a similar role. But the supply chain offers a unique pay environment for young women. Women under 40 earned more than their male counterparts in similar supply chain roles. And Abe also noted that the 2022 survey found that women aged 40 to 49 narrowed the pay gap down to about 8% this year. At public firms, women report salaries 4% higher than men. At private firms, the gap's about 11% in favor of men. But before Abe tells us why, let's hear from 1044 sponsor Chevron Lubricants. Protecting your diesel engine and its aftertreatment system has traditionally been a double-edged sword. The same engine oil that is so essential to protecting your engine's internal parts is also responsible for 90% of the ash that is clogging up your DPF and upping your fuel and maintenance costs. Outdated industry thinking still sees a trade-off between engine and emission system protection, and Chevron was tired of it. So they spent a decade of R&D developing a no-compromise formulation. Chevron Lubricants developed a new ultra-low ash diesel engine oil that is specifically designed to combat DPF ash clogging. Delo 600 ADF with OmniMax technology cuts sulfate ash by a whopping 60%, which reduces the rate of DPF clogging and extends DPF service life by 2.5 times. And just think what you can do with all the MPGs you're going to add from cutting your number of regens. But Delo 600 ADF isn't just about aftertreatment. It provides complete protection, extending drain intervals by preventing oil breakdown. Before you had to choose between protecting your engine or your aftertreatment system, and now you don't. 600 ADF from Delo with OmniMax technology, it's time to kick some ash.
Historically, individuals that in supply chain leadership came out of finance and engineering. Less traditional focus areas for supply chain professionals. And so we tended to see a lot of, male and predominantly white males within leadership positions. But yet, when you take a look at the diversity of the workforce coming into the supply chain field, it's an extraordinarily diverse, demographic. And so we're not surprised that we're seeing women out-earn men. But I think we need to also take a look at tenure, because the pay gap inverts the longer the individuals, specifically women, stay in the industry. Men start to out-earn women. I think there's a couple of factors there. First, historically, men have been in the leadership position, so we maybe have an imbalance versus women within leadership. Secondly, a lot of women may have started at a lower rate, and so therefore they're catching up over time with their male counterparts. Then lastly, women staying within the industry. We've got to, effectively have policies that attract and retain these different demographics within our workforce. So a lot of work has been done over the, last 5 years on DE&I. Quite a bit of work is still to be done, but I'm really, proud of the work that a lot of organizations have done, specifically on gender. Now we need to extend that to people of color, as well as to tenure, in retaining and rewarding individuals for their contribution.
Despite the supply chain being a global industry, the survey also found that racial diversity at private companies lags that of public companies.
And I think what we're seeing is that organizations that do have to report out and are public organizations are taking the necessary steps forward. But I think we've also got an opportunity to extend that to their partners. Oftentimes we see large multinational corporations, whether on sustainability or on DE&I, report out, but do they hold their partners, specifically the small, medium-sized firms, do they hold them accountable? So I think we've got an opportunity in this, for DE&I, not only for the public organizations, but for private as well, to recognize that there are opportunities to attract and retain qualified candidates. This is the demographic of the future, and organizations are going to recognize that there are talented individuals. They may not look and they may not act like your previous employees, but these are capable, competent individuals. Our hope is that when we start to see the impact of recruiting and retaining a wide demographic and the impact that it has, specifically the positive impact that it has on the bottom line, I think we'll see quite a bit more organizations, align themselves to a much more diverse workforce.
High schools all across the U.S. just graduated a senior class that's headed somewhere, including my oldest daughter. Some will go to college, some will go to trade school, the military, some will go straight to work. Abe says anyone with an undecided career path should look into a role in the supply chain.
If they get into supply chain, I don't think your daughter will ever have to look for a job, Jason. The opportunities within supply chain right now, and specifically for individuals that want to make a difference, I think this is an extraordinary field. When we take a look at the areas of study for supply chain professionals, it is now predominantly individuals in supply chain programs as opposed to business administration or engineering, which historically had been the source for supply chain professionals. So entering a field that's high tech, that is global in nature, that impacts our, not only our community, but almost every aspect of our lives, from, the ecology to the economy. Supply chains can make a difference in people's lives. And that's what we want to recognize, and more importantly, share with the new supply chain professionals about their contribution. If you want to be part of an organization that makes a difference, that responds to changes in the marketplace, as well as having a rewarding career, I would say get your daughter into supply chain as quickly as possible.
Abe mentioned earlier that finance and engineering have traditionally been the entry point for supply chain jobs, but that's changed over the years. And he says more work needs to be done to showcase how skill sets with various educational backgrounds can find opportunity in the supply chain.
I think one of the areas that we're continuing to, take a look at is career pathways. Our study took a look at the various titles and the functional titles that are within supply chain. And I think that's one of the areas that we have to do a much better job on, is identifying the career pathways for individuals. So for example, your daughter going to college, if she were into finance, we could tell her specifically what you needed to do to become a CFO. You need to get some internal audit experience. You may need some, accounting and, some balance sheet work. But there are various jobs that you need to get on the way to becoming a CFO. If we try to identify the career path for a chief supply chain officer or a global chief supply chain officer, it's varied. It comes in from a variety of different functions, from either planning or procurement or logistics or warehousing. There's a variety of entry points and different job opportunities. And so when we take a look at, and in the report, it breaks down the job titles by our SCOR model, you'll see the diversity that's in there. So from our perspective, that's a very positive thing. There's a variety of jobs that you can take. If you don't like the one that you're in and you think that you have a better opportunity in a different part of the company through the supply chain, there are opportunities. But the challenge is in explaining to your daughter specifically what you need to do to become a leader within supply chain. There's a variety of different career pathways. More often than not, it's unique to the company or to the industry.
That's it for this week's 1044. You can read more on ccjdigital.com, and as always, you can find the 1044 each week on CCJ's YouTube channel. And if you've got questions, comments, criticisms, or feedback, please hit us up at 1044trucking@gmail.com or give us a call at 404-491-1380. Until next week, everybody stay safe.